Hey friends, it's me, Alyssa, and I am back in live and local Atlanta. My background's a little different today. I'm in our auxiliary studio while there's some work being done on my main studio, but I'm so excited to be spotlighting my incredible friend. She's got an amazing story that I'm so excited for her to share with you today. I'm here with my incredible friend, Dr. Letitia Wright. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. And of course, I miss coming to see you in the studio, but we did it from Southern California. So thank you so much for understanding.
I love it. I love it. And I love connecting with my curly headed queens.
Yes,
Like we
yes.
all have different hair routines, but you know what? At the end of the day, it looks good. It looks good. Good, 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 good. So I'm so excited to be meeting with you. And I want to just jump into the basics to let my audience know a little bit about who you are. So, Dr. Letitia, can you share a little bit about your background and your story and who you are?
Absolutely. I am a physician who pivoted to doing television, hosting television shows, producing films, producing other people's shows, and also building Roku channels, Amazon Fire TV channels, and Apple TV channels for clients. And I made this shift. I also included a shift of I'm a crowdfunding expert. So I've been teaching businesses how to crowdfund or fund their business with this crowdfunding strategy since 2010. And so I was an early adopter. I saw it as a way that back then we were coming out of a recession. Entrepreneurs were really struggling to find money. Banks were not lending money. And I saw crowdfunding as an option that a lot of entrepreneurs didn't understand and didn't even know about. And so I set out to really teach everybody how to use this as crowdfunding. And then, of course, I have clients that I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for. I've raised millions over the years. But the thing is, I made these pivots that do not seem connected. Um,
Absolutely.
and so lately I've been sharing with people, how do you pivot? What is that? And I love talking about the pivot because it's a way for me to incorporate other things in my life without totally starting from scratch. And many times when we start a new journey, we're like, okay, I'm starting from the scratch. I'm starting from the bottom and I got to clean up. And I love teaching people how your experiences, the things in your past, the things that you have learned, even myself being a physician, the things that I have learned can be incorporated into the new path. And you can use that as a leg up and not always start from scratch.
And I love that. And you just spoke on the next thing I wanted to ask, which is obviously being a physician, there's so much discipline that goes into being the student, going through the practicum and out in the field practice, and then becoming a doctor. Can you speak to the calling or the sense of urgency, or was it just a little bug in your head saying, this is not for you, or you need to go this way, take this path, this path? So can you talk about kind of what was that feeling inside of you that said, I'm going to step away from my physician duties and turn towards a role in media, if you will?
Well, I've said I wanted to be a doctor since I was 3 years old. So I literally grew up to be what I said I was going to be my whole life. What happened was is when I got out into practice, my own practice, I had such a struggle. And I didn't realize other doctors in my class were partnering with physicians before they got out of school. And I couldn't figure out how these people, what my classmates were graduating, taking the state test, and then a month later they were in a fully blown practice. Like I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know that people were out networking and making these deals and getting set up in a way that wasn't available to me as a woman of color, me as a woman. I was totally out of that loop. So when I started my own practice, I had to start with, a little bit of money that I had. And thank God my husband didn't let me mortgage the home to the hilt because we're in that same home and it might not have gone well, but I had really a struggle. So while being a great doctor, I dealt with a lot of families and everything, and clients loved me. I just didn't have enough clients, enough patients coming in. And so the practice was a struggle. And I reached out to different practice management companies. Back then, there was no SB ATV, there was no Shark Tank, there, none of that was available. So we're talking like before YouTube existed. So there wasn't, there wasn't places for me to look and find information. And so there weren't any books out there. There were just a few books about business, but they weren't about what I did, and they were not helpful to me. So I reached out to practice management companies, and practice management companies come in, you pay them to come in and they help you get your marketing together, help you grow your business. And I was just struggling. I went to other chiropractors, asked for mentorship. One male chiropractor said to me, "You have kids at home? You need to go home and take care of your kids." One said, she was 2 towns over. She said, "No, I can't mentor you. You're too close to me. You're my competition." I
Wow.
just got all these different reasons why no one wanted to mentor me or help me with my practice. And so, and they didn't want to hire me either. So it was like just a really tough time. And I asked the practice management company, I filled out an application, sent it to them, and they called. And I got excited. I got my pen and I was like, okay, I'm gonna, write everything down because they're gonna tell me when the expert's coming. And the person on the phone said, "Yeah, Dr. Wright, we got your application." And I'm like, uh-huh. And they're like, "Yeah, you don't make enough money to be one of our clients."
Wow.
And I was just stunned. I was just like, I felt like I had exhausted everything I knew how to do. And the struggle was taking the love of my practice out of me. It was taking the love of seeing patients out of me because it was, such a struggle on the back end. And uh, the other thing that I had done is that I had gone to a TV studio and done a little local studio and done a show there. And it went so smooth. And people were like, "Oh, wow," they really liked, I talked about my practice. I talked about who I was. I looked good. I don't know what was going on, but I had this little peach suit on and my hair was good and my makeup was good and everything was good. And I started doing a show called A Healthier You. And then I started doing a show called The Right Place because I thought it could help me bring in more patients. And Southern California Edison paid me $1,000, gave me $1,000 check, and the light bulb went off. I was like, "Oh, this is a business. This is a business. This is not just
Yes.
something I'm doing on the side." So I made the really hard decision I sat my family down and I said, "Look, I'm going to close my practice and I'm going to focus on TV. I just got this $1,000 check from television and I'm like starving in my practice. I'm not getting $1,000 checks in my practice." And my family was really quiet, which is very different. They didn't say no, they didn't say good, they didn't say anything. And normally my family, my extended family, they're very, very supportive. Like anything you ask for, they will support you. Like the elders, I have a cousin that's my age that's a judge in Los Angeles, and the elders in our family, when they're together for something, they'll go down, have fun, take the train down to LA because it goes right into the downtown where her court is, and they'll sit in her court because they think that that's being supportive to her. They wait for a break and she gives them a little tour and everything, but they're sitting in court watching her because they're like, they're support. That's how supportive my family is. So to have silence was interesting, uh a little scary, but I just told them I'm exhausted and I just want to go this other way. And so everybody was quiet. They didn't say no, but they didn't give me the support that I'm used to having my entire life. And so I started with the Right Place TV show and I made that pivot. And for some reason, when it came to asking people to sponsor and do this and that, I had no shame, nothing kept me back. The shows were really good. And money was flowing, sponsorship was flowing. It was just an amazing time. And so I knew back in 2004, 2005, I said, everybody's going to have their own TV show. I didn't know that social media was coming or how it was going to happen, but I just
Right.
knew that. I said, products people, they're going to have their own television show. And that's where we are now. So I've been doing Right Place TV. I started out interviewing experts in business because I needed to learn business and catch up. And I found it was a great way. And I had no shame. I would ask very big people, and they were like, great. I had two interviews with Stedman Graham, that's Oprah's boyfriend. I just, like I was just out there traveling. I went to business school in Malaysia. And so I did some shows while I was out there. I mean, it was just really just, doing Right Place TV has been just a great time. Then we come up to 2010, we're having this recession, and people in business, the banks aren't lending them money, which is very was unusual. People had not experienced that before. And so I found out about crowdfunding, and I started teaching people crowdfunding. This is a way to bring in money. You don't owe money to the banks. You don't it can come to you. You can raise as much or as little as you want, and there's different ways to do it. You can give people shares of your company, or you can pre-sell your products and services. And so I began teaching people back in 2010, and I'm sorry, 2011. And then President Obama signed it into law in 2012. And it just boomed and expanded. And so a lot of people know me from crowdfunding, and then I had this other tribe that knows me from media, because I was still doing my show. I made a couple of films. I made a film I'm very proud of called Head Ladies in Charge. It was very short interviews, really great stories, in-depth stories, not the same old stories you've been hearing for years and years. And I just had an amazing time. And so I made this pivot. And then I will say probably the latest slight pivot is that I am working on philanthropy for the homeless, for the unhoused. And so I spend a lot of time each week personally doing outreach, and I raise money for my entrepreneur friends, because I'm like, hey, I know you got it. So, and you don't have time to be out on the street, but I do. I make time for it. Me and my family, we keep these packages for the unhoused. They have socks, they have a toothbrush, they have some things to clean themselves, a little bit of food in there. And so we hand those out. It doesn't solve the problem, but it's just letting people know that we care about them. And, we believe that everybody deserves to be in a home. Sleeping on the street is not the loss of dignity that, the way the systems have, that's not fair. And so, I've been working a lot on that, and how, looking at how to expand that program. But it's been very, very, I've been blessed. I've had some great entrepreneurs really support me in that and do monthly pledges. And so we're out there on the streets. But I have this gift. Wherever I am, I can see homeless people. I can see, oh, that's a person, that's a person, that's a person. Like I can just see them no matter where I go. So visiting cities that I know that I'm not there to do that work, but I can, I see it. So I
Yeah,
know that
absolutely.
that means I need to attend it. So that's kind of who I am. That's a lot. But that's why I like to talk about the pivot and what I bring from each thing as I move forward. We leave some things behind. So um, it was hurtful to leave the physician part of me behind, but uh, in the end, it was definitely the thing to do. And I could probably open up a practice now because I understand marketing. I didn't know marketing. When you come out of school, you're a great doctor. You don't know anything about business. You don't know anything about
Right.
marketing or anything else. So, if I was to go into practice again and see patients, I would probably there's a type of practice that some doctors do where they let people pay what they can. And so that they don't have to worry about billing insurance, they can just treat the person and treat them, and not be like, well, your insurance won't pay for this. So, oh, well, you don't get this treatment. You can only do this. Like they want to treat the patients completely. And it's just, pay what you can when you come in. And there are a few doctors that work like that. They're very, obviously they're very wealthy. They can afford for the clinic to not, the person not to pay.
Right.
They can pay the expenses. So I think if I were to go back into practice and see patients again, I would do it like that and just really be free to treat patients and get into it the way I want to, and not be hindered by, you know, is the practice running with enough cash?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the most striking things, especially when it comes to healthcare, is you hear people say all the time, oh, you can't put a price on a human life. But unfortunately, with the concept of insurance, especially privatized insurance, it's like you're literally putting a price on a human life when they can't afford care, when they can't afford treatment, when they can't afford medication. You're literally putting the price on their life. And if they can't afford that, then you're basically telling them to drop dead. And I think that's truly so heartbreaking. It's actually a conversation I had with my father yesterday, where we were talking about just with it being an election season. And I don't know why he would even bring that up. I'm like, come on, Dad. Come on now. Like, out of all your kids, I'm the most socialist, liberal leaning child you own. So no, we're not going to have that conversation. And it's wonderful to hear that there are doctors like that and there is practices that are like that. Unfortunately, it sounds like they're so far and few and in between. So I definitely commend you if you do decide to go back to medicine and open a practice that's the route you want to take. Now, you talk a lot about pivots, and I think this is truly why you belong in the world of media. Everybody in media, we're pivot experts. It's like we love media, we love storytelling, we love connecting with people, we love being leaders in our community, but that also means we're like almost subject matter experts in so many different things that it's our job to relay that information to people because you don't know who you're connecting with, you don't know where they're coming from and what they need. Can you speak to, the level of following your intuition, especially as a woman of color? Because I know I oftentimes am like, oh, I shouldn't act on this because I'm told to be quiet, sit in the corner, not take up space. Oh, let somebody else take that shine, essentially. Can you talk to following that intuition and that feeling of, I have to do this or else nothing is going to happen?
Well, I think that just the general uh, America is a great place, a great country, probably the greatest place to be a woman of color in the world. But yes, there's a lot of strain. There's a lot of we don't want to hear what you have to say. There's a lot of you don't know what you're talking about. We get that straight on. I teach for an international business school that moves around the world. So this year we'll be teaching in Thailand. I taught in Australia last time. I taught the classes. We were supposed to go to Vietnam, but that was right when the pandemic hits, and Vietnam was like, "You guys have too many cooties." They were okay because some of the teachers come from Australia, and that's close to them. And when they found out how many Americans were coming, they were like, "Oh no, absolutely not." So they shut that down. But it moves around, and I found it so interesting. I'm here in an international business school teaching about crowdfunding, and one of the students stood up. These are adults, these are not kids. One of the students stood up and told me, you say that you can crowdfund in America. The fact is, we have crowdfunding sites, and if you come from a different country, you can put your project on an American crowdfunding site. She said, in front of the whole class, I don't believe you. Wow. It's like, so you think this business school brought me from the USA to come over here and tell you stuff that's not true? Like, so as a woman of color, you come into the room knowing that your voice, your thoughts, your is going to be devalued. You just have to calculate how much is going to be devalued. And I believe in going where I'm celebrated, not tolerated. Those days for me are over. I'm interested in I understand people have their biases. Everybody has biases, but you have to be willing to get over the bias to hear what I have to say. So in terms of really stepping up, I have just decided I'm the person. If you're going to be pissed at me and not like me anymore, then that's okay. But I am going to, speak truth to power and say it. So I think that following your intuition is about a couple of things. You just have to evaluate, are these relationships that if they are broken, are you okay with that? Because many times when you say what you need to say, that's going to be a deal breaker. The people that could include you might decide to exclude you. And
Absolutely.
as long as you're okay with that, if this is a relationship situation that you're trying to build, then while I'm not saying, don't talk and don't speak up, there's a way to do it to make sure that it's not as abrasive as it could be. I'm a very straightforward person, and so people tend to take that as abrasive. I am assertive, I'm not aggressive, but as a woman of color, if you're being assertive, they take it that you're aggressive and you're angry. And so you just have to be aware of those biases. You have to assess the situation and just make sure that you're okay. If this is a business partner, you've got a business deal, you don't want to chop their legs up. But at the same time, there are people that you know, just walked away from and said, you know what, I don't want to work with you. I don't even want to hear from you. I got an email from a colleague and we send out emails. We all send out our little marketing emails, but his email was that his product was as if you were doing this and you had Oprah as your babysitter. And I said, classifying Oprah as a babysitter is so incredibly demeaning. This woman is a billionaire, and you may not agree with everything she does. I don't agree with her little Hawaii thing. That was really not cool. But she has accomplished a lot. And to say that it's like having, Oprah be your babysitter was such a demeaning email.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
just said, hey, you need to be aware that this is quite demeaning. No, I know it's not a lot of people of color in your world. And you can tell. You can look at, like, when you go to a conference, look at all the speakers. If there's nobody that looks like you and me, girl, I don't go anymore. I'm like, we live in a world where you can diversify your speakers, especially if they have an event in Los Angeles. Los Angeles literally has citizens from all 196 countries in the world. You can find anybody you want to find in Los Angeles, you can find them. Okay. And so to have a bunch of speakers that do not reflect any diversity in 2024, I understand that that's a message. You're saying we're not interested in you. We don't care about you. We don't want to give to you. You might not want to put yourself in that conference because the people that you're networking with are not going to be people interested in you. So it's a decision. I do things very, very thoughtfully, and I encourage people to do it thoughtfully, especially women, you know, the way you speak up. But it's really based on, you know, am I okay with this relationship being broken?
And I think that's such a powerful statement to say because I agree. I feel like if for the first time in my life, I am making more intentionality or taking time to be more intentional with the decisions I make. Am I being celebrated or just tolerated? And for the first time, it's like I do feel like I'm taking ownership of those life choices I'm making now. That I'm like, I'm not gonna just tolerate. Oh, thank you for letting me in. Like after I begged and begged and begged. So I think it's so important that you are sharing this message with people and with women. Now, obviously, it is Women's History Month, so I have to ask the go-to easy jump shot question of who are women who have been, kind of guides in your life, whether it is somebody personal, a historical figure. What's been a journey of another woman that you felt inspiring or you were able to say, this is a woman I want to be like?
Well, my mother, she's passed away now, but she definitely inspired me. I watched her go from wearing a beehive to wearing an afro and being a little bit, militant. And, to watch this growth and this change and all the things that she wanted to do, it's just really amazing, what she had accomplished in her life. So I would definitely say, we had a great relationship. I know a lot of people do not have good relationships with their mom, or maybe their mom just wasn't a good mom. There are people that, you just luck of the draw, you didn't get a good lottery. I do understand that. But I definitely looked up to her. Historically, I think that I was always quite enamored with Bessie Coleman. She was the first African American woman to, be a pilot and fly. Quite enamored with her life. My grandfather was working on his last book before he passed away. So it's half a manuscript, it's not fully written, but that he was writing a book about her. And I just thought she was so interesting. And I absolutely love to travel. That's why I was so disappointed I couldn't be in Atlanta with you. But I love traveling. I love flying, and so she's someone. Um, I look up to Byron Allen in terms of our TV journey. I look up to Byron Allen because I want to do something very similar to what he's doing, and watching his moves are extremely quiet. It's like you don't hear from him. I remember his start as a comedian on a show. There used to be this weekly comedy show, and he was the black young comedian because he was very young, and all the other comedians were much older, and to start there and be where he is now instead of in terms of our television journey. um Lynn Twist is someone that I look up to. She has several books in terms of my philanthropy. She is someone that I really look up to. So I was just really blessed to have a lot of great people in my life. I was blessed to have African American teachers, even African American male teachers. I still am in touch with some of those teachers when I was little. So that's an experience. If you're African American, many, many people have never had a black male teacher. And so that it really informs your education. It's very, very different. I just have been really, really blessed to have people go before me that were able to impart, information and understanding. And it was just, you know, I've had an amazing journey. I'll just say that. I was able to be an exchange student when I was 16. So I've lived in Denmark. I mentioned before that I went to business school in Malaysia. So I've been around the world, and it's just really interesting who you can find, and that people are really people all over the place. So
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that I think is super touching to me is when I meet with people and when I want to share their stories because it's human. And I think a lot of people tend to forget, like we as humans, I think are naturally selfish just by natural. Like our human instinct is to just be a little bit selfish. And, as I get older, I tend to or think like, I'm not the only person who sits in traffic basically, but why I'm sitting in traffic is obviously completely different than why the person next to me is sitting in traffic. And it's that we have to remember we all have the same human experience. It's just really these finer details are what make each individual special and unique. And there are some who are standout like that, who do make a difference in just a lifetime. And they
mhm.
are able, there are some people who expand that and they're able to make a difference beyond their lifetime and generations after generations, they're still their impact made a difference. So I think it's just truly incredible, especially now in 2024, like we do celebrate Women's History Month. It is a topic of conversation. It's not just like, okay, yeah, the ladies they want something, like we'll give them that. We'll give them that. And I remember years ago, I was watching like a documentary, and I'm a huge documentary watcher. I can never keep up with a TV show. I love to go to the movies when I can, but I've always loved documentaries. And I remember there was one about just representing women in media, and it was the when they were creating the Hallmark Channel, essentially all the big TV executives were like, "Why do the women need another TV channel? They have Lifetime." And I just think that's so shocking because it's like, hello, it's a whole another avenue for money. Like at the end of the day, even think about it like that. It's like if you don't want to think about us as people, at least think about us as people with money. And
Exactly.
so
Women are spending lots of money. And that's what I love about building TV channels. There are millions of them, but we all have different tastes and aesthetics. And there are people that you and I could say one thing, and they wouldn't hear it from us. They would hear it from somebody else, but they wouldn't hear it from us. And so that's what I love about this, especially the streaming channel platforms where you can get on Roku, have your own channel, have your own thing. You don't have to worry about censorship. You don't have to worry about you have to follow FCC rules. You can't be crazy, but you know in general you have much more freedom than you have on
Yes.
social media.
Yes, it's
It's
way
not
more
social
limited.
media, yeah. And so I love that people developing channels for a small niche because you can do very well with that small niche. And here's what I remind people when they're starting their own channel, I tell them if you had 1,000 people watch your channel, and I deal with a lot of professionals who have their own products and books and all of that. And I said they spent $200 with you over the course of a year. That's a $200,000 a year.
Absolutely.
You do
Now,
not have to have millions of people to do that. But I
yes,
think it's really beautiful in that it gives more women a chance to tell their different stories and get the word out. One of the things I'm working on is that I have a cousin um, who they're back in Israel now, but they lived in the kibbutz. The war is going on. You know, everybody in America had lost contact with them for a while, and then got contact with them. Their whole story of what they're doing, they've been in America for a little while, but they've gone back now. So I'm arranging, 10 different time zones to get them on there. But the story in the interview is not so much about the war and who's right or wrong. It's just this is a person, this is their family. This is my family, literally my family, and what their experience is, what is happening. And that's what I want to talk about. And not that I don't want to hear from the other side. I just don't know anybody from the other side. This is what I have access to. These are literally my family members. And so I'm working on an interview to hear these women talk about what they're experiencing. Their home is gone. They can't go back to that area, but they are going back to try to rebuild. And I can't imagine something happening where your entire home is no longer there. Everything you've built up, everything I've lived in the same home for a couple of decades. I'm clearly not going anywhere, but to have it all gone and be it's quite an experience. And so the intersectionality of being a woman, being a woman of color, there's just a lot there. And I think that having my cousins really tell their story is going to be quite interesting.
absolutely. I mean, I get emotional when I'm like, even if I don't shop in a store and I'm like, it went out of business, but why? So I can't imagine the emotional toll happening in that region of the world, losing your home and I think a lot of people in the United States don't necessarily understand it's not just your home, but it's a family home. It's a generational family home. So it's like you're literally losing family history. You're losing so many things, your family traditions. So it's heartbreaking to see all of that. Now I want to touch on you actually said something really interesting and I remembered because I actually was doing some research ahead of time. You create Roku channels and channels.
Mhm.
When I was trying to figure out what that meant, I was doing research. I kept almost hitting like a dead end when I was like, how do you create a channel? How do you do this? And it's like very generic words would pop up. So I want to know and understand how you got into this because just even doing hours and hours of research on my end, I'm like, how is she doing this? How did she find out about this? What's the story there?
That's the story there. So I'm used to traveling a lot. Prior to the pandemic, I would probably be on a plane twice a month somewhere. And so the pandemic comes in January. I've had a clothing sponsor for 7 years. In January of the pandemic, before we're just looking at New York and we're going, wow, they got some really bad cooties over there. What is happening in New York? California, it hadn't quite gotten to California yet. And we were just like, wow, New York is having a tough time. They gave me a call and said, oh, your clothing sponsorship is canceled. And I'm like, hmm. So I've literally had free clothes for 7, 8 years. So I called my bestie. I'm like, oh, my clothing sponsor called and she just cancel. And she's like, girl, you had free clothes for 7 years. Shut up. I had no sympathy for my friends. But it was just like in that January, bookings that I had to speak were closed down. Got notification that we weren't going to be doing the business school that year in Vietnam. Like everything started shutting down. So by February, we get it. The world is shut down and we're not going anywhere. And so I'm home and I'm making adjustments to being home. Can't figure out why people are mowing their lawns at 7 a.m. because I'm now getting used to neighborhood sounds. And I'm like, do people ever mow their lawn at 7 a.m.? Like, why aren't you guys sleeping? What is going on? So I'm home and I'm thinking I need to expand. The reason why I went to Roku is that my show, I used to pay for time on different channels. Not a problem. Generate the income, pay for your time slot, and do it. But the last channel I was waiting for got bought by a Christian channel, and they called me and said, "You're not Christian material. We're not going to have you on the channel." So the contract I had with them was literally dissolved. And I didn't want my show to be homeless anymore. I wanted Right Place TV to have a place to live. And so I started a Roku channel. I built it. I learned how to build it. There's free stuff online where you learn how to build it and everything. Roku allows you to use their platform, but you have your own channel and you can do what you want on the channel. They've changed over the years, and I talked to my clients about the whole thing. Amazon Fire TV did the same thing. There's Amazon Prime, and then there's Amazon Fire TV, which is for everybody else. So yes, you can get yourself on Prime, but that's a different process. But Amazon Fire TV, you can again program and build that and begin to put your content on there. So now I have a team of people, coders that are doing the behind the scenes building. And what I do is I focus on making sure the clients understand how to make money with their shows. Do you know how to get sponsorship? Do you know how to work different things? Do what do you need on your show? Do you know how to get it and not have to pay for it or get paid for doing what you do? And so that's what I focus on. They focus on the back end. And what I do is that I have a done for you system. It is not like YouTube. You can't just upload like YouTube. It is a different system. It's a little bit more complicated. And so for my clients, we upload all of the content for them. You just send the content, we put it up. Any shows you want taken down, you just tell us and we take it down. Because everybody's on one system. I've done about 40 different channels. Everybody's on one system. If somebody breaks it, they break everybody's channel. So we don't take any chances with that. We don't allow that. But you can put whatever content you want up, short form, long form. You can make your channel whatever you want. And what I do is just consult on, okay, if this is the kind of channel that you're having, this is the way that you can make money. And so I started doing that because people literally came to me and said, "You have a Roku channel. How, help me have a Roku channel." And so the pandemic came, and then that was the way I was making money. I made quite a bit of money because other people wanted Roku or Amazon or Apple TV. We also have Apple TV, right? My Right Place TV channels on Apple, Roku, and Amazon Fire. We can also do Samsung, but I literally have never had a client go, "I want to be on Samsung TV." It just hasn't happened. So they have these alternative platforms where regular people can put their shows up. They allow you to use them as the base, and then you have your show, your channel on top of it. And then that way you can put up shows, commercials, whatever you want to do. You don't have to worry about so much censorship. You do have to still follow FCC rules. So, you can't, be weird, but you can have freedom of speech that people don't find. People, I'm having this conversation on TikTok about, oh, we need TikTok because that's the only place that people can get. It's not the only place. There's all these other shows. There's all these other people who are out there speaking the truth. And we have to remember, if you're on social media for free, you're the product. They can do whatever they want. They can make whatever rules they want because you're on there for free. But when you have your own channel, you have the freedom to really tell what you need to tell, give the information out, and tell your story. So
Absolutely.
that's how I started. And I work with a team now, like I said, because I can do it myself, but it would like that would be all I was doing all day. And that's not the part I love. The part I love is consulting with clients and helping them craft really cool show ideas into something that's them yet compelling to an audience, and really, growing their followers and knowing that they don't have to copy anybody else. They don't have to be me. They don't have to be Oprah. They can be themselves, get paid to be themselves, and entertain and inform their tribe. They just have to be aware of your tribe.
And I think that's really such a great point. I'd love to ask you, even from a personal standpoint, I often kind of credit myself as a one-woman team. What
Mhm.
was that point for you where you're like, hey, I really do need the help? And you kind of, it's hard to ask for help, especially when you're a woman of color and you're a minority. Because I struggle with that. Like right now,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I need help. And I feel, I don't want to say necessarily ashamed, but I feel embarrassed because it's like, we're already pegged as loud or aggressive or in
Lazy.
spaces where it's pegged as uneducated. So it's like
Mhm.
I never want to walk into a space that is not welcoming or
Mhm.
is not where there's people who look like me and they're
Mhm.
like, "Ugh, she's asking this question because she's dumb or "Ugh,
Mhm.
she always needs help." And so what was that point where you're like, look, I just have to move past that mess that I'm dealing with mentally and
Mhm.
ask for help and get the team together and all of that.
Well, I think that one of the big things, and you nailed it on the head. I mean, I absolutely have had the same experience that you're talking about. Kind of hate to ask for help. Uh, don't want to be seen as dumb and categorized. But what is really, really good about asking for help is that you can get things done. So what I really found is that I really evaluate who I ask help from. Sometimes we ask help from people who can't really help us. And so, or don't want to help us. And so, just evaluating that kind of ahead of time, doing a little deeper dive of who you're going to ask help from is a big, big deal. It'll save you a lot of time and trouble. Really, they could be the smartest person in the world, but look at who are they around? Who do they talk to? How do they respond? Like you've got to really just take a minute. But asking for help is something you do have to work on internally, and your deservability, that you deserve the help. Whatever goes on, there's a little bit of you don't deserve to be helped. If you can't figure it out, you don't deserve it. The whole thing of when you deserve it, you'll get it. It'll appear. That is BS. Okay, I'm going to tell you that is BS, because you can look at other people that are worse off than you, dumber than you, and they have what you are trying to achieve. So it's not about that, but it's just knowing inside yourself you do deserve that. You deserve the help with that, and working on your self love. This sounds really crazy, but working on self love, and even myself in a position where I'm an outgoing person and I'm out there and I know that I have a tribe that loves me, I still have to work on self love, loving yourself, forgiving yourself, and truly, truly cherishing you cherishing you. And we as women are never taught to cherish ourselves or put ourselves first. And so, all of those things are things that you have to work on to ask for help. And then, just on the other side, like I said, just evaluate who you're asking help from. Sometimes we ask people that really don't know the answers. I crack up when we have these experts, Gary Vee, and all these people. Now, not that he doesn't give out good information, he does. But when he starts talking about, here's my plan to do this and that, and this is how I did this and that, you are leaving out that you didn't do that. Your social media person came up with that plan. Like, it's not a plan that he came up with. Gary Vee is very vocal about, he didn't do well in school and he's really not well educated. He made it through college, but he barely made it through college. And so and actually he went to a historical black college because he couldn't get into anywhere else. And so and not to put down what he's done some great things, but sometimes there are people out there putting out that, okay, this is my plan on this, that you didn't come up with that plan, you paid an expert. And so part of us, we have to value paying for expert advice, and just and really paying for being somewhere where you can get exactly what you need, because that's what they're doing. They're not coming up with it themselves. His expertise was marketing wine. His expertise is in marketing. But as you know, just being an expertise in marketing doesn't make you an expertise in social marketing. And things change. TikTok is very different from Periscope. Okay. I was able to really blow up on TikTok. I have about 140,000 followers on TikTok. My Instagram has been at 3,000 for 10 years. I mean, my Instagram has not grown an inch. And so, you know, you just have to figure out what's going to work for you. And again, be in the spaces where you're celebrated, not tolerated. I'm finding more and more women of color who are ahead of us, they're 8, 9 figures, are starting uh, consulting and groups to help people who are, 6 figures to get to their level. Because guess what? Nobody else is going to do that. And when you're in a position, you've grown what you want to grow for your vision, you're going to look back and you're going to see all these women who, how did you do that? Nobody else will talk to me. And I'm very free with my information. Now, I am a consultant, so no, I don't let people pick my brain for free, and you shouldn't either. It's like, no, you can't pick my brain. You can't, someone called, a young lady said someone told her to call me and that she wanted to have me for coffee, and she wanted me to tell her everything she did to get her TV channel. I said, so you think over a 30-minute coffee, I can tell you everything I did? And she
Right.
goes, yeah. I said, you're insulting. You're insulting. I said, if you think everything I did to get a TV channel and do what I've done over the years, and you think I can give you all of that in 30 minutes over coffee, I said, absolutely not. I'm not meeting with you. So just respect on the basic level. Um, but I'm happy to help people. But it's like I don't just freely give of my time, but there are more and more groups that are more welcoming to us. And like I said, I'm just very careful. I'm not going into a conference where there's nobody. I'm the only representative. Those days of me being the only representative for me are over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, when within the last 4 or 5 years, that was a situation where it was interesting that I was the only kind of person of color on the in the group, and I'm like, why are you coming to me with some of these things? And it's like I'm not even the right representative for that. So it's still shocking to hear that this happens in 2020s, 2024, 2020. Like it's just so crazy to hear that. Dr. Letitia, I think you shared so many wonderful stories, and I'm sure we could go on for another 2 or 3 hours because I'm just like so mesmerized by your stories and your storytelling. But I do have to cut the time at this point. How can people stay in touch with you, follow you, and all of that?
Absolutely. I'm at Wright Place, like my name, rightplacetv.com. I have a contact page there. You can read about me, read some articles, and catch up. And if anybody wants to email me from there, they can do that. I'm on TikTok as your crowdfunding expert, or Dr. Wright and the number one. That is my handle on several social media, on Instagram and Snap and all of that. So people can reach out if they have any more questions or need some help with their projects. I'm happy to help, and I'm happy to be here. And like I said, I'd love to come back. And next time I will come to Atlanta. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question. I always try and ask this of everybody, and that is what's one piece of advice you would give people to be inspired by when they're feeling down, they're not sure what direction they need to go, if they need to pivot? What's one piece of advice you want to give or piece of inspiration you want to give somebody?
This is what I always say at the end of my shows: ignoring one's conscience is neither safe nor right.
That is very deep. I'm gonna have to write that down myself. That is very, very deep. I love it. I love it. Dr. Letitia, thank you so much for joining me today. This is Alive in Local Atlanta. I'm your host, Alyssa. Make sure you download the free Odyssey app today. That's AUDACY inside the App Store. Once it's downloaded, favorite Star 94 Atlanta so you get notified of exclusive conversations just like this one with my incredible friend, Dr. Letitia. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with me, you can give me a follow across all social media at itsme_Leslie, and I will see you next time.